Textbook definition of escaping with a win on the road.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's up, everyone? Welcome into this Wednesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my fifth year covering the University of Louisville, third year hosting this show. And I want to take the time to personally thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the show is free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. This episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All you have to do, visit FanDuel.com to get started. On Tuesday evening, the Louisville Cardinals escaped Blacksburg, Virginia with a 71-66 win over the Virginia Tech Hokies. Really tough performance from Pat Kelsey's team, but a win is a win. And it accomplished a couple things. We'll identify what those things are coming up shortly. We'll discuss what went wrong. The team battling illness in this game, and it definitely had an effect on their performance. We'll also discuss whether or not we need to be worried about this team moving forward. Putting the 5-game winning streak to the test, Louisville competed in their final true road game of the season on Tuesday evening and escaped with the victory over the 12-15 Virginia Tech Hokies. It was not a great performance. There were moments where Louisville looked really good. They opened up the game on a run, had a double-digit lead early. Virginia Tech ended up fighting their way back into this game, and then the second half was just back and forth, and Louisville was able to make the plays down the stretch when they needed to. More on that coming up here in just a second. But what did this win do for the Cardinals in the grand scheme of things? Well, number one, it clinched a double bye in the ACC Tournament coming up here in a couple of weeks. The Cardinals are 22-6 overall. They are 15-2 in conference play, and they will automatically be a top 4 seed when the team plays in the conference tournament. We'll discuss a little bit more about that, the team's path to maybe getting the number 1 seed, staying at number 2, or where they're likely to end up. We'll discuss on tomorrow's episode of the show. But clinching that double bye has been a focal point for me personally, really since the team won their 5th game in a row during the first winning streak through January. And that was a thing that I was hoping that Louisville was going to do before the season. I predicted 21-10 and a top 4 finish in the ACC. At times, it didn't look like that was going to be realistic, but Louisville has been really good in the 2025 calendar year through the month of January, heading into now what is going to be the end of February. And I can't believe that we are already at the end of February. It feels like it's going by so slow, but then you're like, well, we've only got 3 regular season games left. So another thing that this win accomplished was this squad now holds the largest improvement in win total in program history. 14 wins. Team has been really good this season. 22-6. They won 8 games last year. They were tied with the 1986 and 2005 squads for the largest improvement in program history in terms of win total. So nice to see this team be put into the history books. And overall, a win is a win. I know it wasn't pretty, and trust me, we will discuss that 100% coming up in the next segment. But when Louisville needed to make plays in the second half, they did. And it had been a while since the Cardinals had played in this close of a game. Like, they've had some wins where, Florida State wasn't the closest game. They won that by single digits. Pittsburgh was a 4-point game, but that was in early to mid-January. We're at the end of February. It's been a while. Like the downfall of winning so many games by double digits is that you don't really have a ton of experience playing in those games that go down to the wire. Now, I'm not going to say that that's a bad thing, considering that the Cardinals are winning a good amount of their ACC games by double digits. But you do wonder, well, how is Louisville going to play, with 2 minutes to go in a tie game? And this was like I said, a really up and down game for the Cardinals. Like there were moments where they looked really good, the team that we've seen all throughout January and February. And then there were moments where it's like, come on, man, shot selection got rough. I think we need to start with the final play of the game. And it was a brilliant decision by Pat Kelsey and defensive coordinator Brian Cloman for drawing this up. When I saw Virginia Tech go out of the timeout and James Scott was guarding on Tuesday night, the best player on the floor for Virginia Tech, Brandon Recksteiner, I was like, whoa. Was that supposed to happen? And the ball gets thrown into the backcourt. Recksteiner brings it up. And you could just tell at that point that Virginia Tech was immediately confused. Because it was clear that the objective of that play was for Recksteiner to get rid of the basketball, be able to come down on the screen, pop up off of it, and get the switch to where he would then be able to use a mismatch to get a good shot. Well, the way that Louisville ended up defending it was that they initially put James Scott on the ball handler. And when Virginia Tech went through the play, it then switched Javon Hadley, one of the team's best defenders, onto Recksteiner. And you could just tell that Virginia Tech did not know what to do. And also credit to Javon Hadley for swiping at the basketball and getting that steal, which then would eventually put Rain Smith to the free throw line where Louisville would go up by multiple possessions and thus win the game. Incredible play. Risky play, but shout out to Pat Kelsey and Brian Cloman for being able to draw that up to where it not only confused Virginia Tech, but you were able to execute successfully and get the ball back without the Hokies even putting up a shot. Huge play. And it just once again reiterates and highlights how great of a play caller Pat Kelsey is out of the timeout. Louisville wouldn't have been in that situation, however, if it wasn't for Terrence Edwards making some big-time shots. He had a fantastic end to this game, and it wasn't a great game. It wasn't a great performance from him across the board, but he ended up making a bucket with about 5 minutes to go to give the Cardinals a 4-point lead, and he hit a three-pointer with 4:01 remaining in the game, which allowed the Cardinals to go up by 7. Now, Recksteiner ended up going right down and making another three to answer, but the following possession for the Cardinals, Edwards goes to the corner and makes another perimeter shot to once again go up by 7. So those 9 points in the last, let's say, 6 minutes of the game, huge buckets because Louisville wasn't able to get much offense going. The offense, I mean, it was rough. It was really, really rough. Untimely turnovers, bad shot selection. I do think the whistle was, I don't know. I won't say it was horrible, but there was some situations where I was like, look, I'm okay with allowing teams to play physical, but that's a foul, man. That's a foul. James Scott had a putback dunk when Chucky Hepburn missed a layup with about a minute to go, and that put Louisville up 3 points. Huge putback dunk. And James Scott hasn't really been a huge proponent of this offense outside of right around the rim, but understanding his role, crashing the boards, and getting that offensive rebound in a game where Louisville got out rebounded and being able to get that dunk and come up clutch really on both ends of the court. I think if you chose the co MVPs of the game, kind of that's a tough decision because no one played particularly well. I would say I would go with co MVPs of the game. James Scott had 13 points and 6 rebounds with 1 block. Terrence Edwards, 5 of 14 from the field with 13 points and 4 rebounds, 3 assists. So you could also go with Javon Hadley, 11 points, 8 rebounds. But a win is a win. You escape on the road in conference play, even though you went up against an opponent that's not really playing all that well. You got another win, 6 straight. Louisville now will have 3 straight home games to wrap up the regular season. But there's a lot to get into with this performance. It just wasn't a great one for the Cardinals and uncharacteristic of a Pat Kelsey team. And I think that there is a pretty clear reason behind that. We'll identify when we come back on this Wednesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on that action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. If you're looking for a larger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting features because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. I was backing my team last night for a late game rally against the Milwaukee Bucks. I had Jalen Green hitting a clutch 3, which he did, and I never felt like I missed my chance. Plus, the app being so easy to use, it's just icing on the cake. When you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you compared the loss that the Cardinals suffered in early February and the performance from last night, I don't think it would be that large of a debate. I think that the performance last night was the Cardinals' worst in ACC play to date. They had multiple opportunities to be able to put this game out of reach, and they didn't take advantage of that. The clear reason I feel like contributed to Louisville's rough performance was illness. Pat Kelsey mentioned it post-game after Florida State. He mentioned it before the game against Virginia Tech. There is an illness going through this program. It affected the team against Florida State. It affected the team definitely against Virginia Tech. I mean, you could just look at these guys. You can sort of tell when someone's not feeling good. You can just tell when they feel sick by just looking at them. And I didn't have much of an idea before the game. But when I watched them, I was like, these guys just look sick. And come to find out, that was exactly the case. Now, whether it was the flu or some other type of sickness, it has affected practice time. And I don't use that as an excuse because if Louisville were to have lost, the tone would be the Cardinals choked the game away. They had multiple points in this game where they could have put this game away, and they did not. So this isn't an excuse. It's just an observation. And it's an explanation because it was an uncharacteristically lethargic performance from Pat Kelsey's team. It's already a shorter rotation, and it's that time of year, and if illness comes through and it, hits your program pretty heavily, it's going to affect your stamina. It's going to affect your legs. And I wonder, with Louisville having shot so poorly from the field or from three-point line, 26%, they made 6 of their 23 attempts. I wonder if that fatigue messed up shooting. Rain Smith did not shoot the ball well last night. He's 3 of 11, 1 of 9 from 3. Second half, he just couldn't buy a basket. Cardinals got some good looks in this game. They just didn't knock them down. And I have to wonder, is that because this team is flat out exhausted? Because when you're ill, it's hard to play. I know Michael Jordan had the flu game. Not everyone is Michael Jordan. I think that that's the main thing you have to look at. And I think that that is the main reason why this team played the way they did. And I think it was really, really evident on the defensive end. The team was just a step slow. They were getting out hustled. They were getting outworked. Virginia Tech, credit to Mike Young, the screens that Virginia Tech was running and the off-ball movement, continually moving without the basketball, it hurt the Cardinals. They were a step slow in reacting. I don't know what it's going to take for the ACC to call moving screens, but I mean, there's some where it's like, yeah, this guy gets a good shot. Well, of course, because the screener is pulling the primary defender away. And it wasn't everyone, but I have to give credit to the Hokies team. Now, what makes this tough is that Louisville went up against a team that was 12-15, 2-3 in their last 5 games. They just put up 36 points against Boston College and lost, and they were without their second leading scorer, Elijah Petit, who truthfully was one of their best post threats, 6'9", 260 pounds. So shorthanded Virginia Tech team, you could just tell that Virginia Tech, and I've watched a decent amount of them this year, this was the most engaged that I've seen them play in a long time. And it comes with the territory of being one of the top teams in the conference, a ranked team. You're going up against a team that doesn't have much to play for outside of pride, and they're going to try to spoil your season. They are going to play harder and probably better and try to spoil your season. It just comes with the territory. It's not an excuse. It's just reality. Virginia Tech wanted that win last night, and Louisville was very lethargic. And I think a lot of that was because they just were ill or overcoming the side effects of the flu. It's one of those things to where it can take a week or two to fully get that out of your body. And it just showed. And I don't want to say what was the flu. That's the reason why Virginia Tech played good. Louisville gave up way too many open three-pointers. They had a guy, Brandon Recksteiner, had 18 points. Guy averaged 6.5. Going into halftime, the Hokies had a combined 2 points from their starting lineup. The Cardinals were only up 8. They had multiple opportunities to close this game out. Not to mention, they opened up the game on a huge run. They were up by double digits almost instantly before Virginia Tech could even score. Let's put that to the side. Let's go to the second half, okay? Louisville had an 8-point lead at halftime. They held a 50-39 lead in the second half. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is the point in the game where the Cardinals go out and they push the game out of reach. That did not happen. What happened was the exact opposite. The Hokies went on a run, and before you know it, the game was tied 53-53. You had a chance to put the team away on the road, and you didn't do it. You gave up too many open shots. Virginia Tech had, 2 straight threes, and then an and one off of an offensive rebound. Cut the lead pretty quickly. Offensively bad shot selection and just really untimely turnovers. And then you go a little bit further into the game. We talked about it. The Cardinals had a 7-point lead a couple times. They had a 7-point lead off of a Terrence Edwards three-pointer. Rex Steiner went down and hit a shot to where nobody put a hand in his face. Edwards hit another 3. and you're up 7 once again, and Virginia Tech goes on a 6-0 run to make it interesting. Look, this was a game in which the Cardinals never trailed. They didn't trail 1 second in this game, but they had so many opportunities to be able to close this game out, and they finally did at the end, but cardiac cards were in full effect. Wasn't a great performance against Florida State, wasn't a great performance against Virginia Tech. And I've seen people on social media ask whether or not it's time to be worried about this team as they head into the final couple games of the regular season. My short answer is no. But there are some things that we need to address, and we'll do that when we come back on this Wednesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Cardinal fans, want to again take the time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the show is free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. Tomorrow's episode, we're going to talk about the race for a top 2 finish in the conference. We'll discuss some international recruitments that the Cardinals are seemingly involved with and much more. So be sure to tune in on tomorrow's episode of the show. But 2 straight games in which Louisville hasn't looked the sharpest. And people have asked on social media, people have asked me in a Discord chat, is it time to be worried about this team? Not really playing all that well. The main thing that I've seen people point to is, well, it looks like this team just has fatigue. Yeah. Because they're dealing with an illness. Like, this whole team is decimated by illness. If you've had the flu or sickness like the flu, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and act like a WebMD doctor, but what does it do to your body? It takes away your energy. I mean, when I had the flu, my whole body hurt. I didn't have an appetite. I lost double-digit pounds. I just wasn't in the mood to do anything. It was miserable. Try having to stay active and play in a college basketball game. I understand it's a shorter rotation, and Hepburn, Edwards, Hadley, and Rain, they've had to play a lot of minutes. There's a lot of miles on their legs this season. I don't really contribute much of the fatigue we're seeing right now to that more than I do the illness aspect. Because, I mean, Notre Dame, this team was the enforcer. A good portion against Florida State, this team was the enforcer. This game, they just were uncharacteristic. I don't think this is a correlation to season fatigue. I mean, are guys tired probably? Yeah, of course. But I don't think that this is a issue that we have to blow up, because it's pretty clear as to what the team is dealing with. Now, I will follow that point up with, if we go into the next 3 games and that effort is the same, we're starting to see a trend where Louisville doesn't play well and they're barely winning games, or maybe, Lord forbid, they lose a game or 2, then we have a conversation to have. Then we have that conversation. But at this point, I'm not really worried about the team, because it's pretty clear, like, there is a direct reason for this. So, I'm not really concerned. This team has looked really good in ACC play. They've been dominant in conference play. They are 15-2 in conference play. They are 22-6. They are ranked inside of the top 20, and they are on a 6-game winning streak. It would be different had they lost the last 2 games, but instead they found ways to win despite dealing with a lack of energy and a lack of their legs. So at the moment, no, I'm not going to sit here and tell you all, well, I'm worried about this team. I mean, it doesn't make me feel good. I don't watch the game against Virginia Tech and say, oh, it's okay. You know, it is what it is. I am as critical as anyone. We just had a whole segment on what went wrong. The performance from the Louisville Cardinals against Virginia Tech was inexcusable. It was unacceptable. illness considered, they had every opportunity to win that game by 15 to 20 points. They didn't take advantage of it. They turned the ball over too much. They forced a good amount of turnovers. Virginia Tech had 22 turnovers, but they only won the game by 5. It was a 1-point game with 1 minute to go. So I think that answer can be no to this question, but you also have to admit that it can't become a trend. And I feel like there's good reason to believe in Pat Kelsey to allow his team to be able to bounce back. The Cardinals are going to use these next couple of days before they play again on Saturday to rest up, do what they can to get their bodies right, and try to get over this illness that has struck the program. I will highlight a couple of things that I would like to see this team do better, and this has happened all year long. The Cardinals give up way too many open three-pointers. They gave up way too many against Virginia Tech. Thankfully, Florida State couldn't hit them, but the Cardinals have had to rely upon teams just not hitting shots when they play Louisville. And there's been games where the Cardinals have played really good on defense, guarding the perimeter. But especially in February, three-point defense, I think, has been the most lackluster aspect of this team. It has not been good. The stats will prove it, too. They're allowing close to 35% to their opponents from behind the arc. It's one of the worst in the conference. So I want to see this team defend the three-point line better, because ACC tournament's coming up. You play Clemson, you play Duke, teams that are going to try to beat you from the perimeter. You go into the tournament, and let's say that you get that 5 seed or maybe a 4 seed, 6 seed at the worst, and you're going up against a really good mid-major team that shoots extremely well from behind the arc, or you're going up against a Power 4 team that's got those three-point shooters. You don't defend the three-point line well, you're going to be going home. So that's something that I want to see Louisville do better at. It's hard to take too much away from these past 2 games because the team's not playing at full strength with this illness. And it feels like the way that I'm talking about it, I'm using it as a crutch to justify the performances. I promise you that I'm not. Because if Louisville loses any of those 2 games or both of them, there would be a good amount of criticism on that show. You better believe that. But the energy aspect of it, we've seen all year long about how this team likes to be the physical enforcer. They like to be the team that plays harder than their opponent. And it has been that way in the month of February, too, outside of Georgia Tech. And then these past 2 games, Georgia Tech, that's a different story. But these past 2 games, we kind of have an idea. So I'm not really worried about this team moving forward, long story short. Tomorrow, like I said, analyzing the pathway to clinching the 2 seed in the conference. We'll talk about some basketball recruiting and more. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Go Cards.